Hi guys, I'll continue in that vein to talk about some of this with housing. When I was little, we moved every year. I went to all the grade schools when I was a kid, K through 6. My mother thought it was funny. We'd have these beautiful, beautiful apartments. I can remember every single one of them, but for whatever reason, she thought it was, sorority girl. I'm calling her now. Thought it was funny to rip me out of school and, que sera, sera, she used to say, all drugged up. And I'd get ripped out of school and have to start over. You know how it is. I'm grateful I was never left back. I managed to still do well in school. Oftentimes teachers were more interested. It was so salacious, back then to have. The first question was always how come your brothers have different last names? Yeah, that was always a huge thing. So I'd have all these addresses on my papers for school. My mother would not want to be involved with going to school. I mean, she would let me know, I don't want to be a mother. I'm not going to be involved with the PTA. I thought it was, maybe she was, one of those the new moms. Didn't judge her for being divorced, although back then, it was very, very taboo to be divorced. It was a time we were talking about bastards and shacking up and out of wedlock, those types of things. So it was extremely difficult. But I still, my grades were good. But the housing was a constant. I'd have to start over. And then, of course, you always meet the bullies. The bullies that target you right away. I'm going to kick your ass, da da da. I was called out by them all the time. But, you get them alone somewhere after you avoid them as long as you can. And, it's like, do you have a problem? Nope, no problem. When they're alone, there's not a problem. So I've posted some stuff about gang stalking. They'll pick on you for that. I kind of hesitate, but, some of it's relevant. We need to be, if that is part of it, we need to be a little bit more, look at some of this stuff because it does involve police officers, which is kind of interesting because then they'll tell you you're crazy. Stalking is part of their job, resume, we can get into that. I mean, they do it as a matter of course. Police, have to watch trap houses and drug houses and, they have to put evidence together. It's part of their job, but we can get into that. But anyway, yeah, so this whole thing with apartments, and the same thing with my ex-best friend and cousin. She was pregnant at 16, had never had a problem. Beautiful, beautiful apartments, house fulls of furniture. I was over here around the corner. I found out recently on Madison Avenue when I graduated SUNY Albany that my aunt attended SUNY Albany. Yep, she got a master's. My grandmother's younger sister. So she's actually my great aunt, but the way things are with your age thing, oftentimes people are, they're your aunt, or like my grandmother's my mother, because my mother's more like my jealous sister kind of thing. But yeah, so finding out on her obituary, she actually went to SUNY Albany, and I never even got a thank you note from these people. So we can get more into this child abuse that when you withhold things from children that are important for them in growing up. And, I'd have people come up to me, are you related to so-and-so? And oftentimes I didn't know. I mean, my parents divorced when I was 5. My mother was barely married a year, but they'll use it to, harass you, terrorize you. Often at school, I had to account for all this stuff. Why do your brothers have different last names? Why do you have so many addresses? And we'll get into some of this where the people use it for like this whole thing with, oh, you got all these ACEs, you might as well, you're never going to do well. But I did do well. And of course, then they got to bother you in other means, and we can get into that with activities and stuff you're not allowed to participate in. But suffice to say, this is what's going on with housing in our communities, and I want to talk more about these Photoshop filters with some of this stuff. I mean, you walk into these places and they're dumps, and the rents just keep going up. We go from $800 for a room just a short while ago. Now we're up to $1,200, and we still can't. And that's quite a stretch for me because I'm on a very low budget. I do have to apply for Social Security. I should be collecting a rental check for $1,200. This is how, excuse my language, fucked up and economically abusive these can be. So instead of getting rental income $1,200 a month or higher, considering the way my apartments were and the kind of landlord I was, I would be up there at $1,500. Of course, I don't think any of the apartments in Amsterdam at this point are worth over $800 because the city offers so little to people renting there or buying at this point, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, that's a whole other thing about real estate. And I'll leave it there because we're going over a little bit and I don't feel well. But yeah, so these places, they're demanding all this money and it just keeps going up and up, and you still, you're not getting the services promised, and the things aren't being handled the way they should be. And this continues with housing here in downtown Albany, and we'll continue to document what's going on here, because you go from, you should be collecting rents to now you're expected to pay all this money. And I have to pay for this national grid bill, so we can talk about the utilities. Everybody wants money now, but nobody wants to give you what, they're supposed to be doing. And then the whole fuckery of having to pay people now rather than being in my own home and collecting rent. So it's quite, this economic abuse is quite heinous. What they can do to you and, strip you of all your assets, and then you're pretty much in this situation where you just can't get housing. Be safe.